Hi guys, I'm going to show you like a little bit of coloring and some of the things that I come across when I'm working with students on my caseload. So just some tips. One of the things that OTs really like is to break crayons. So we have nice small little crayons for students to work with. So if you have broken crayons at home, do not throw them away because they are like perfect for developing grasp. When it's small, it's really hard to have an improper grasp. It just is. This way they're working on those fine motor muscles. And I try to create experiences and present things in a way that students have to start using the small motor skills, the small muscles in their hands, so that they're actually creating dynamic movement when they have that tripod grasp. That's what we call that. I see a lot of this static movement and static writing, these static grasps, and I try to create activities and experiences so that students will actually have to color just with their fingers, and that's just going to help them down the road. So there's a couple ways we can do that. Small crayons and having them color small things. So for example, like this flower activity, you know, I might have them color the tiny little circle in the very middle with the little crayon, like this little orange crayon, and then they have to make these tiny small movements because it's kind of hard for them to do that if it's a big area that they're coloring, right? And a lot of times what my students will do is they'll pick their wrist up off the table, and I'll even try to give them a little bit of pressure so that they have to hold their wrist down, and then it really kind of forces them to make those fingers work. I think some of it has to do with the amount of technology that kids are just exposed to nowadays, especially with using iPads and iPhones. And I mean, I have a 3.5-year-old, and absolutely there are wonderful benefits from having iPads and iPhones as part of even for her education. That's not what I'm saying. It's just that we have to really look out for how they're developing their motor skills. And this is one way to really make it work when I think that's just something that is much harder for kids to get nowadays. So this is a nice little trick. And then even like the rest of the flower, they can, whatever the color is, you can still give them like a different small crayon and make their little muscles work. Maybe that's not going to be as difficult for them to do if they wanted to use a gross grasp or an improper grasp, but the smaller the areas that they're coloring, the more they will be forced to use this kind of like dynamic grasp. And if you see how my thumb and my pointer finger is open, we call that an open web space. That's good for their hands. I don't know how else to explain that. Yeah, so something like this. And then another little tip, I'm not going to color this whole thing in because I think I made a good point. For this large area down here, what I might try to do with my students is even outline it for them, so they kind of see exactly what it is that I want them to color. One of the nice tricks that my OT assistant Lori uses is she outlines things for students with a marker ahead of time. I guess if I would have thought that through, maybe I would have color coded some of these ones. But these worksheets in particular, it's really up to you if you want to color or not, because I intended it to be cutting and gluing practice. It is a nice place for them to practice coloring, but they might have more motivating things that they want to color at home right now, and I understand that. So something that I might do is present it already outlined for them, and then if there's a bigger area, a nice way for them to work on their grasp is just turning the crayon on its side. And can be very confusing for kids, and they don't often understand how to do it right away. But if they've been with me for a while and you say rub with the crayon, they generally know what that means, because a lot of times they'll try to roll it. But the idea is that they just pinch it and then they rub it across the paper. And it just is still, it's working on grasp. This is a static grasp, but it's still working on that tripod grasp. Same thing. So broken crayons, we love broken crayons. Peel the paper off, have the students peel the paper off of it. If you have a crayon that breaks, have them peel the paper off of it. That's a great fine motor activity right there. And I mean, you could do all kinds of rubbing. See what you can find around the house, leaves and all of those kind of things. Maybe I'm going off on a tangent, but I mean, why not? We're all at home right now. So just some ideas of how to color with your kids, and I miss you guys, and stay healthy.